The list of business people or business individuals who are accompanying President Trump, there was controversy there because Trump did critique one of the news agencies in America who said that there's one particular person who was not on the list, but Trump said that that person is on the list.
Right, the head of NVIDIA.
Yes.
I think that the head of NVIDIA, there was some online controversy about whether or not he would be on this list. And I think it's important to note that on the one hand, it is a list of individuals that will be traveling independently to China as part of this delegation. But then you have Elon Musk and the head of NVIDIA who are actually on Air Force One with President Trump. And I think that's where the controversy arose, that it's not only that he's not coming, he joined in Alaska and also got on Air Force One with Elon Musk.
Well, that's interesting because we are waiting for who emerges from Air Force One right now. In a few minutes from now, Susan, stay with me because the president is just about to disembark from the Air Force One. This is live in Beijing International Airport. The president has arrived in China for his much-awaited two-day state visit where he's expected to meet the president of China, Xi Jinping. They're set to hold bilateral talks with the president, and what will be in focus is trade, technology, the Iranian war, and also Taiwan. And the president did indicate before he left for Beijing that he will not bring up the issue of Taiwan. He will let that be on Xi Jinping's side of the coin. And the president did indicate that all he wants to do is bridge the gap when it comes to trade and technology with China, because he says that America still has some speed when it comes to technology, and he wants to get to know from the Chinese side how they do it, and if they can collaborate on that sector, or if they can collaborate on sectors such as trade. Susan, I hope you are with me. Who are some of the envoys who are escorting the president to Beijing, and what's the significance of them being there?
So you have the trade leaders that you mentioned, and then you also have people like Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio. Scott Bessent earlier spoke with trade officials in China. He arrived there prior to President Trump. And I think what's very interesting is Marco Rubio is on this trip. He is now, of course, the Secretary of State. But a few years ago, when he was senator, China sanctioned him and put restrictions on his travel to China because of comments that he made regarding Xinjiang, labor laws, human rights violations, and the treatment of Uyghurs in China. So, you know, it's interesting that as Secretary of State now, Marco Rubio goes to China despite that past relationship. He's completely a China hawk. But I think both sides, of course, the United States, but China as well, decided that it's better to really not allude to those restrictions, those travel restrictions and sanctions, where he was senator, and keep the lines of communication open. Because at the end of the day, these are two countries, despite their huge differences, and despite the fact that, you know, China has relations with a lot of America's adversaries, they believe that the lines of communication should be open, and they believe that they are highly dependent on each other.
How do you think the tariffs talk is going to unfold in China, Susan?
So, you know, I think for the Chinese, it's very important to bring down the temperature when it comes to the tariffs. And I think President Trump, that's where he sort of can hold some kind of sway on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's something that the United States can agree to when it comes to tariffs. But I think that they will ultimately be in the same conversation as the trade imbalance with the United States. China has a trade surplus. There needs to be a rebalancing of the economy. And the import competition that is happening right now, where American markets are flooding with Chinese goods, but on the other hand, that doesn't happen the other way around. I think that's also going to really play heavily on the tariff issues. Also, American farmers are going to be watching very closely. America wants China to buy more soybeans and just generally purchase more American goods. And I think that, that may be sort of something that the two sides can ultimately come out with some kind of deliverable. But what's interesting is the tariff issue might actually be the least complicated issue between the two sides, considering the fact that, you have the issue of fentanyl. President Trump just recently talked about how COVID came from China, and China never acknowledged that. There's the human rights violations issue, where a lot of analysts believe that this administration might not really harp heavily on, but again, it might become a topic of conversation, once again interrelated to the rebalancing of the economy and the import competition and the job losses that Americans have been facing here due to China. And then there's the stealing of intellectual property and the issue of AI. And I think that's the reason that President Trump wants to focus so much on trade, because he sees that there may be areas of cooperation in those issues, despite the fact that China has made promises regarding these things before. But I think he believes that he can get some kind of deliverable coming back regarding those issues. But then, of course, the issue of the Iran war, the Strait of Hormuz, shipping lanes, oil, those are going to be a lot more complicated.
Susan Tehrani is our correspondent. She is in New York. Susan, I will come back to you so that you can give us the itinerary, the full itinerary of the President of the United States in China. Shreya Upadhyay is our correspondent. She is my colleague. She is in the newsroom. Shreya, before I come to you, the President of the United States had given a lengthy interview to reporters yesterday. He did indicate that he doesn't think that they need any help when it comes to Iran. He also said that he will discuss the issue of Iran with the Chinese counterpart or the Chinese president, but is not really sure how China is going to assist.